Welcome to the Texas NORML Virtual 420 Happy Hour. My name is Jack Spinkle, and I serve as the Executive Director for Texas NORML. Let me tell you a little bit about the amazing speakers that are joining us today. We're going to be joined by Speaker Pro Tem Joe Moody out of HD 78, Republican Chairman James White out of HD 19, Freshman Representative Jasmine Crockett out of HD 100, Morris Denton with Compassionate Cultivation will be here, and Chase Bearden with the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. We'll also have Viridiana Edwards, who is a U.S. Army veteran and serves as Texas NORML's Veteran Outreach. We also have Texas Representative John Bucy, who is actually my legislator out of HD 136. We'll have Susan Hayes, who's a lawyer, advocate, and crisis manager who helped mold the hemp program that we have here in Texas. And then we'll also have a word from the Hemp Tours team. And then I'll wrap it up with a ledge update, let you know what's going on with all of the bills up at the Capitol. Just a reminder that at the very end, we will be doing our giveaway. And I did want to also show you guys real quick that we are hosting a silent auction. So I'm going to share my screen. And there we go. You can see that we have our silent auction to help us finish the legislative session strong. We've got 14 different items. I think that some of them have been purchased at the buy now price, but you can see there's quite a few more available. So I just wanted to let you know that Stephen is going to drop the link for that inside of the chat section. So make sure that you check that out. In the meantime, 2 housekeeping items. Please make sure that you drop comments. Let us know where you're from in the comment section. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and we will get to those and try to answer all of them for you. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hi, I'm Joe Moody, the Speaker Pro Tem of the Texas House. Thanks so much for having me virtually today. This is an exciting time for cannabis law in Texas. Really, it's been an exciting few years. I know it can be hard to see the progress when at the end of the day, the laws themselves have only changed incrementally. But I'm optimistic because I've had a front row seat to the way this policy area has shifted in only a few legislative sessions. When I first became interested in cannabis reform, it was something that was laughed at in the legislature. Often these bills weren't given a hearing, and if they were, they certainly weren't given a vote. That's changed rapidly. Just last session, we voted decriminalization out of the House with a bipartisan supermajority of votes. I can guarantee you that no one's cracking jokes about these bills now. That shift in attitude is why I've chosen to keep pushing. I handed off the decrim bill to Representative Aaron Zwiener, and I did that so that this session I could take on a retail market bill, which I filed as HB 447, and I believe it'll be heard next week in committee. Now, I don't want to give you any false impression that this bill is going to fly through the process. It's an enormous change to Texas law. So I fully expect it will be a multi-session effort. But that's where we're headed soon enough in this state, and I'm excited to join all of you in helping get us there. A retail market is a crucial step in so many ways. It's not enough to stop locking people up for a plant that's helped countless people without killing a single person, something that can't be said about nearly everything you can get a prescription for or buy over the counter today. People need safe, sensibly regulated access to cannabis. They need to know exactly what they're buying, and it needs to be in a robust marketplace that offers consumers a wide variety of choices. And on a week when we take up a state budget that always struggles to fund education, infrastructure, and other priorities, I can tell you that Texas needs that extra revenue, and the Texans need those good jobs. Meanwhile, we're going to keep pushing on expanding what we've got, which is currently a very narrow medical option. We're also going to keep working on decrim until it gets across the finish line. Until we can get to helping people with the retail market, we absolutely need to stop harming them with arrest and prosecution. And as we do that, we'll keep rowing together to get Texas to a place that's as free as it claims to be. So I want to thank you again for letting me be a part of this today. I want to thank you for the advocacy that all of you do on this issue. As I said, there really has been a meaningful change at the Capitol, and since the people in this building are often the last to change, I know it's truly only a matter of time before Texas has an entirely different relationship with cannabis. So keep hope and keep up the fight.
Hi, my name is State Representative James White, and I am extremely honored and proud to represent my fellow Texans in Southeast Texas in Polk, Tyler, Jasper, Newton, and Hardin counties. Every elected official should have guiding principles, and my guiding principles are conservatism. Conservatism meaning that our rights and liberties flow from the Almighty to the individual. And it's the individuals that form organizations or collectives called governments. And they form these governments not to overrule them, not to negate their liberties, but to create an environment where we can live in liberty and use our liberties with our fellow man to grow the prosperity of our entire communities. When it comes to criminal justice, conservatism, I believe, rings loudly. So when I look at how do we apply conservatism, where we're valuing the individual, where we are restraining government to a few set defined powers or responsibilities. Conservatism, where we're not allowing government to degrade the individual, but in fact to make sure that we uplift the individual in an appropriate way where we're all enjoying our liberties and expanding our prosperity. This is one of my guiding approaches when I look at criminal justice policy. We should focus our penalties, we should focus our government power on those people who truly endanger our life and our liberty, and those that we're merely just upset with because maybe they don't act the way we act. They don't destroy, they don't impact my life or liberty or even my quality of life, but I may not just like how they're behaving at the point of time. We should not waste too much government resources on just behavior modification because someone is making me mad. This is one of the guiding principles or approaches, conservatism, I use in marijuana policy. I have to ask myself the question, one, the use of marijuana, and I do not use marijuana. I've never used it. I've never partaked of it. But at the same time, I have to ask myself, is it endangering, is it undermining my life and liberty? Is it, or someone using marijuana, or they're coming into my home and endangering my wife and I? So that's the first thing we should look at. And we should make sure that we're being judicious and efficient with the people's monies. I'm told it could be anywhere from $50, $60 on up for someone to be incarcerated in our local county jails. All of that is on the backs of the taxpayers. So when we arrest someone with small amounts of marijuana, is it because we're mad at them, or is it because they are endangering our life and our liberty? In most instances, it's because we're mad at them. And then if we're mad at them, we don't need to exhibit that anger by putting more property tax burden on our backs. Maybe we need to reach out to them and give them some treatment, some opportunities to kick the habit, but not necessarily in the criminal justice system. Probably we need to do that through some type of medical or drug treatment system. Also, we have to ask ourselves, based on what we know about marijuana today, just what is the true impact on our community? So that's how I just look at this as a conservative. I consider myself a fiscal conservative. I always want to do what I think is best and ensure that I'm not putting more burden on working families here in Texas. But at the same time, we want to have safe communities. I mean, it all goes together. We have to have safe communities. We have to have a quality of life. So by reducing penalties on small amounts of marijuana possession, we can shift and focus resources on those tasks that we really want government to do, those core constitutional government functions when it looks at public safety. That is tackling violent crime. something that just burns me up immensely to know that we have so many untested sexual assault kits while we're spending so much money and resources incarcerating and arresting people for small amounts of marijuana. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my conservative values and how I think we all should use conservative principles in ensuring that we have a criminal justice system that is just, that is obviously constitutional, that is cost efficient, that values the individual and leads to higher quality of life and more local prosperity. Thank you, and may God bless you, and through you, our great state of Texas.
Hello, NORML, and thank you so much for everything that you do. It always brings me joy when someone steps up and says, I am here to represent NORML. And let me tell you why. I believe that we need marijuana reform in the state of Texas, and we needed it like yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. We're behind so many other states in this country. And when Texas is supposed to be bigger and better at everything, one area in which we're failing is in marijuana reform. That's why, supposedly, I'm not saying that it's true, but supposedly, I have filed more marijuana bills than any other legislator this session here in the state of Texas. And I have filed pieces of legislation across the board. Number one, I want to make sure that we decriminalize. For so long, we've had so many Black and brown people that have been locked up and incarcerated, whether it was the state level or the federal level, throughout this country. While right now, so many other states, we see just this windfall of money that's coming through because of the legalization of marijuana. It's just inconsistent, and it's not really efficient as it relates to how we're spending our money in this state. Right now, we have suffered from COVID-19, and then on top of COVID-19 in the state of Texas, we were dealt a blow with the winter storm. We've got to be smarter about how we spend our money and how we make our money. It doesn't make sense for us to continue to incarcerate people, and usually those people are the most vulnerable amongst us. People that I represent in my House district of HD 100. We've got to stop spending money on the incarceration and instead make sure that if we are going to say, hey, it's still illegal, let's at least make it just a fine of some sort, a civil fine. Let's not make it criminal. Because when we make it criminal, there are so many collateral consequences associated with that. And all it does is further hold down strong Texans that are simply trying to gain access to what so many others in so many other states easily have access to. In addition to that, we need to make sure that we are expanding upon the use of cannabis as it relates to medicinal purposes. Right now, it doesn't make sense that lawmakers who have no training whatsoever in medicine are making decisions about what people should be prescribed. I think that we should leave that up to the medical professionals. I think if a doctor wants to prescribe legal cannabis in whatever potencies and for whatever ailments, they should be allowed to. The medical board is there to oversee them and their actions and their professionalism. I just don't think that it's up to us to do that. It's amazing when my colleagues say things like, we want small government. But the only time they're okay with big government is when it's regulating someone's health. It doesn't make sense. And I just want us to be consistent. And with that consistency, I believe would bring about real marijuana reform. So I'm asking that you keep up the fight. Every single session, we're getting closer and closer. It may seem like we're doing it at a snail's pace. I'll agree. But I am pretty aggressive with the legislation that I am filing for, because I believe that so long as we have legislators that are filing aggressive legislation, then we've got a chance to really make some moves. If we only ask for a little bit, then we'll only get a crumb. So I believe that we should ask for the whole, we should ask for everything. I'm gonna keep this clean. But either way, thank you so much for your advocacy. Please keep it up. I am always here for you if you have any questions, myself along with my staff. Thank you.
I'm Morris Denton. I'm the CEO of Texas Original Compassionate Cultivation. We're the leading medical cannabis company in the state of Texas. We've been operational since 2017, and for the past 4 years, we've been working hand in hand with the medical community and with our patients to create life-changing medical cannabis. You know, one of the first things that happened to me was starting to hear from the thousands of Texans that had been advocating for safe and legal access, and their stories were just sort of overwhelmingly grounding. You hear about what the family has to go through in order to help care for a single individual within the family, and the amount of disruption that illness creates for that family. And so for us to be able to take this plant and turn it into medicine that changes their lives is really, you know, the reason why we're here. And it's certainly the purpose that all of us come to work to pursue each and every day. Right now, a lot of our patients are on fairly high doses of CBD and THC because that's what the doctor believes is going to help them with their symptoms, and because that's what's showing to be efficacious with this medicine with those patients. But unfortunately, due to the limitation on the allowable amount of THC, these doctors are prescribing high doses, and it's forcing the patients to consume an inordinate large amount of carrying oil in order to get to the prescribed dose of active pharmaceutical ingredient. And what that creates is it creates a side effect that's not healthy, that has gastrointestinal issues, because in order to get to 2.5 milligrams of active pharmaceutical ingredient, based on today's limitation within the compassionate use program, that patient is going to have to consume north of 240 milligrams of carrying oil. That's not healthy, that's hazardous, and that needs to change. You know, in the 2015 legislative session, Senate Bill 339, known as the Compassionate Use Act, passed the legislature and was signed into law by Governor Abbott in September of 2015. Since that time and through the end of 2020, twice as many Texans have died as a result of opioid use disorder than the entire number of patients that have participated in the compassionate use program. Twice as many Texans. It's crazy. It's crazy. Texas has 4 of the top 17 cities for opioid use disorder. On average, there are 47 prescriptions written for opioids for every 100 people in the state of Texas. The toll of opioid use disorder is about $20 billion annually to the state of Texas. And yet here's medical cannabis that can serve not as a gateway, but as an exit to opioid use disorder. And there are a number of studies, scientific studies, that determined that the proper use of medical cannabis helps reduce by significant percentages the use of opioids in a variety of different patient profiles. You know, one of the questions that I got in 2019 when I would visit some of your offices is, can you show me the science? Well, science to me is proof of the truth. And for the last 4 years, right here in Texas, in our state, we've been working with patients, with their families, and with the medical community to prove the truth that we all know and we all see, and that it's time to start looking at this not as a drug, but as a medicine. And it's time to let the power and the truth of this plant transform the lives of thousands of Texans.
Hey, this is Chase Bearden. I'm with the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. And first, I want to say thank you for joining us today. As we've moved forward through the legislative session, there's been a lot of changes where it comes to medical cannabis in Texas and the current programs we have. I just wanted to take a second to talk about one of the many that are going through the process, and that's HB 1535 by Representative Click. It is slowly growing the program, something that's happened since the beginning. Over the last few sessions, every session we've tried to get more and get to the point where we have a program that works for everyone. It's been a very slow process, unfortunately, and I think all of us that have worked on this really do recognize that and want to try and get to the best medical program that we can offer here in Texas that covers as many Texans as we can, makes it cost effective, creates good regulations that make it safe and include you working with your doctor, along with making sure that we have great opportunities for not just the businesses and the industry side of it, but good working relationships between advocates, those who are receiving medication from these programs, and just Texas. We're working really hard to improve the program. Right now, we're looking at trying to increase the THC amount within the products from 0.05, which is slightly above what legal hemp is at 0.03, to allowing up to 5% THC within the product. I think this will greatly benefit and help many in the program. We run into the problem of having to have too much of the other products added in just to get the weight up so that we can meet the current legal structure. By increasing the cap on THC, we can actually produce a better product that has less side effects. So that's GI issues, which doesn't affect everyone, but the extra oils, the extra products that have to be in there for that weight do affect some people. So looking at that, also expanding the diagnosis. Currently, that's the process we're having to work with. I think many of us believe that we should work towards more treating what symptoms, because many of these diagnoses could be sleep issues, it could be pain, it could be seizures, may fall under a different diagnosis for you, but for someone else, we're still treating the exact same symptoms. And when you can help someone get symptoms under control, you can always help the root problem and increase people's quality of life, help them get back to work, coming off other medications that might be have greater side effects or just not react well for you or actually work as well for you. I think that's the big thing about medical cannabis is for every person, it is slightly different. For many, it works great. Others, it may not. But we should all have the option to choose that over any of the other things out there, like pain medications and opioids, to help you, over the long term. I know for many of us, a lot of these medications we're already taking, we're going to be taking the rest of our lives. So finding something that's a better alternative that has better efficacy for you, and not just coming in a pill form, but other options to allow you to be able to ingest it in the way your body needs. I think that's something that's kind of gone unsaid for many people, is that getting it as an oil may work for you, it may not. Getting it as an edible may affect you differently than an oil. So we're looking at as many ways we can improve this program. And I want to thank all the people that have already been working on it. There's been an amazing coalition of groups, self-advocates, and others all over the state. There's a lot of interest from legislators, even those that have been uncomfortable with it in the past. And I think a key part of that is continuing the conversation, making sure that we help reduce the stigma, that they understand that medical cannabis is just another medicine. And that we really do want it to be regulated and regulated well. Knowing what you put in your body is just as important when it comes to medical cannabis as it is any pharmaceutical medication. And that's the kind of issues we need to be really focusing on, is getting people the right medication at the right time, no matter if it's cannabis or some kind of other pharmaceutical medication. If we can improve people's quality of life, their health, then they're able to go back to work and enjoy their lives. So again, I just want to ask you all, please participate, please advocate. We're down to the crunch time. We have about 5 more weeks, and we still have a long ways to go, but we're getting there. We should all be excited, and we should all be working towards that end goal of getting this bill passed. And I want to thank Representative Click and her staff and the others that are working on this, and all of the other groups. Thank you for what you're doing, and let's work towards moving this forward. Thank y'all.
Hello, my name is Viridiana Edwards, and I'm the leader of operations for Texas Veterans for Medical Marijuana Access and the advisor for veteran outreach at Texas NORML. In 2015, I received a medical retirement after 10 years of service from the U.S. Army due to injuries that I sustained while serving in Afghanistan. These injuries led me to seek care with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Unfortunately, the treatment that the Department of Veterans Affairs provided ended up harming me more than helping. I was taking up to 23 pills a day, much which were taking care of side effects from other medications, as opposed to the injuries that I was initially there to get treated for. My story is not unique. Hundreds of veterans in Texas have had the same experience with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Like many other veterans, I found relief with medical cannabis. However, due to Texas law, I do not qualify to participate in the Texas Compassionate Use Program because PTSD is not a qualified condition. Additionally, the THC cap of 0.5% further hinders the ability for individuals like myself to participate and find relief with medical cannabis. We ask that you write to all of your legislators so that during this legislative session, we are able to make a change in Texas, because Texas veterans deserve better.
Hi everyone, it's State Representative John Bucy from House District 136. I represent Northwest Austin, Cedar Park, Leander, and the Brushy Creek area, all within Williamson County. This is currently my second term, and it's such a privilege to get to serve in the Capitol and the Texas Legislature to represent the people of House District 136. You know, when it comes to cannabis legislation, I believe we need to expand compassionate use, legalize, regulate, and tax cannabis use for adults, and expunge the records of those solely convicted of minor possession offenses. It's well past time for common sense reform of cannabis in Texas. When I first won back in 2018, right before getting sworn in, I was meeting with one of my local firefighter departments, and we were talking about just the session and preparing and their issues. And in that conversation, one of them mentioned that they had recently come back from a trip from Colorado, and we talked about how the laws on cannabis and marijuana are different there. He informed me that during that trip, he did not participate in any of those extracurriculars because when he got back, he could lose his job. And that's the inspiration behind House Bill 3149. This is a bill that I filed similar legislation last session, again this session, to say that we need to stop drug testing for low levels of THC. Individuals in government jobs who we invest as a community into these people to train them and prepare them for these jobs. There's no reason for them to be able to do an activity legally in another state, come home, be safe and sober at their job, and then lose it for that activity. So that's, to me, is ridiculous. And that's why I filed House Bill 3149, which would basically say, we're not going to test you anymore for low levels of THC in these government jobs. There's a few exemptions for safety reasons that I'd be happy to talk with anyone about, but to me, this is just common sense reform. If we're going to invest as a community into our firefighters or other emergency personnel, and we're going to spend that kind of money, we should not fire them for doing legal, safe activities in their free time in other states, and hopefully one day in this state if we can make some progress. I'm excited to work with you all. I need your continued support to help pass House Bill 3149. It's in the State Affairs Committee. We did get a hearing last session, so we're hoping to get a hearing again this session and move this legislation. So I thank all of you for your support as we're working on this bill and so many more to reform these archaic laws in Texas around cannabis. So thank you again. Let's pass House Bill 3149. I appreciate your support. Have a great rest of your day.
Hey y'all, this is Susan Hayes, welcoming you to the glamorous life of a cannabis lobbyist, where we get to spend all day sunny in a really messy office checking out bills, getting ready for the week, and trying to move some legislation to improve cannabis laws in Texas. I'm going to update you on what's happening with hemp. This session, after passing HB 1325 last session to create a Texas Hemp Program, we've got what's called a cleanup bill. And that typically happens after new laws pass to kind of cross some T's, dot some I's, fine-tune some things that people didn't think of before, or make it a little easier on the people who are participating in the program. And that's the goal of this bill. It's HB 3948. It's got a companion, Senate Bill 1778, although it looks like HB 3948 is the one that's going to move, as we like to say. And it's going to do some sort of cool and simple things, mostly with the goal, or largely with the goal, to make it easier on the hemp industry and hemp farmers. It's going to require the Texas Department of Agriculture to step 2 and update its regulations after USDA is. It's going to create a hemp research license so that our institutions of higher education can clearly touch the plant, play with it, and the goal of that is to help us develop strains that are compliant in Texas. It's going to give y'all 30 days to harvest after your pre-harvest testing instead of the 15 under the prior law. It's also going to acknowledge, and here's some crazy talk for you, that people do cultivate cannabis from cuttings and seedlings and baby plants instead of just from seeds. There was a lot of confusion about that last time around, and resulting in some really unnecessary and higher fees, particularly on those Texans who were starting nursery businesses in the business. Also some streamlining on the dishes side of things for consumable hemp products. Make it clear that people could deliver consumable hemp products without having to have a license, so you can have HEB bring your CBD to your door. And also make it a little bit easier to buy and sell up a company that's got a consumable hemp license. Another update I want to give y'all is on the smokable hemp issue. Last year in HB 1325, there was some language that had to be included to get it passed that prohibits TDA and dishes from licensing companies for quote unquote manufacturing and processing hemp for smoking, because some people didn't get that you can smoke it as it grows out of the ground. That has been challenged in court by some Texas hemp companies. Wild Hempettes in 1937 Apothecary sued, got a temporary injunction to keep that statute from coming into place last summer. And as I'm sure many of y'all are painfully aware, the Department of State Health Services decided they'd add the words retail sale and distribution to that ban, even though those words are not in the law. There's 2 arguments being made in the case. First, as a matter of due process, constitutional rights, the government can't tell you you cannot try to make a living, cannot do something just because they don't like it. They got to have a good reason and a clear reason. And that's what's called a Patel claim, or a substantive due process claim. The second claim is under the Administrative Procedures Act. And the gist of that is that an agency can't make up law whole cloth when it wasn't in the statute. All the agency can do is kind of fill in the blanks. So right now, that injunction's still in place. It is on appeal to the Austin Court of Appeals. There was a trial where we saw permanent injunction about 3 or 4 weeks ago. The court has taken it under consideration. So any day now, or any week now, or because the courts are really, really backed up right now because of the pandemic, any month now, there could be a ruling on the permanent injunction, and we expect the Attorney General will appeal that too. But meanwhile, keep on growing it, keep on processing it, keep on growing the Texas hemp industry. And good luck this growing season.
What's up, Texas NORML family? It's Leah Laxtons
and Cynthia Morales
with Higher Ed Hemp Tours based here in Austin, Texas.
And we want to say thank you so much to Texas NORML for doing such a great job in the Texas legislation this session. They've been doing such an amazing job, putting on some amazingly long hours, and we hope that you take this day to celebrate.
Happy
420!
Hey everybody, it's Abdullah
and Bean.
We're the hosts of the podcast Great Moments in Weed History, and to celebrate 420 and Willie Nelson's birthday, we're going to be sharing 5 great moments from his 60 years as a cannabis icon.
Now, every superhero has an origin story.
And ours dates back to a roadside bar in Fort Worth, Texas in 1954. Willie Nelson is 21 years old, full of piss and vinegar, and he's like,
I love drinking bourbon, maybe a little too much, but I have never, ever tried smoking that reefer.
Which prompted Fred Lockwood, a local musician and one of Willie's running buddies, to make a fateful suggestion. Willie, I highly recommend you put down the booze a minute and try this instead.
man, what a legend. Fred Lockwood was the first person to turn Willie onto weed. Imagine that. But it wasn't love at first sight, right?
Here's how Willie put it in his autobiography. In those days, marijuana was known as tea or reefer or boo.
Whoa, boo?
Yeah, you ever heard that one before?
No, but I'm about to start saying it all the time.
So here's how Willie described his first ever encounter with boo. Fred Lockwood and I had been sitting in some saloon listening to Doris Day singing Hey There on the jukebox when he suggested we blow tea. After I turned him down, he handed me a skinny little joint with both ends twisted and said, "Get high and be somebody."
Get high and be somebody.
Wow, get high and be somebody. That phrase dates back a ways. I remember it from our episode about Louis Armstrong.
That's right, it was kind of a slogan among jazz musicians in Harlem in the 1930s. Get high and be somebody.
Now that is just really sound advice. In fact, I'll take it right now. I'm so glad I took that advice. So what happened next?
Willie waited until he was alone and then lit up the joint. I smoked the whole joint and waited for something to happen. But I had puffed without taking the smoke all the way down and holding it in like you're supposed to. So I didn't even get a little bit high.
I'm not even a little high.
Man, you gotta hold it in. Fred Lockwood was probably like, it's the damn 1950s, Willie. This weed ain't loud, it's quiet. You gotta hold that shit in. Cough to get off.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Willie didn't know any better. But for the next 6 months, Willie bummed joints now and then from Fred, and he still didn't get high.
Whoa, how many joints is that?
Let's see. He bummed joints now and then for 6 months, so I don't know, maybe like a dozen total?
Respect to you, Fred Lockwood. You're not only a damn good friend, you're also an unsung hero of weed history.
Absolutely. He understood that at the time, Willie drank way too much and weed would be way better for him. Willie himself says that making that switch saved his life.
So then I'm guessing he eventually figured out how to smoke pot properly, right? I mean, it's been almost 6 decades.
Well, here's how Willie put it. One night, I did it right. Since then, I have made up for those wasted 6 months.
With 60 solid years of blazing. And Willie, we're all just trying to catch up with you.
How's everybody doing? I see a bunch of comments down here and some Q&A. Let me go ahead and start with legislative updates. A lot has been going on. As you guys know, we had a big hearing week a few weeks ago, and we had multiple bills move through that committee. So let me give you a quick highlight. A few weeks back, there was a hearing for one of Moody's bills, 1086, that would, oh, there's my dog, hi. Oh, it says hi. It's his adoption day today. 420 is his adoption day. And this bill would address the scheduling for concentrate, and that is in calendars. And now there has been another hearing where there were 8 cannabis bills heard about penalty reduction. And so far, Representative Zwiener's bill that would reduce the penalties for 1 ounce or less, protect you from losing your driver's license, allow you to get a deferral to expunge your record, and hit some other notes that were important. That has moved through and is now on its way to calendars. Also, Representative Moody had another bill that would lower the penalties from a state jail felony to a Class C criminal misdemeanor for 2 ounces of concentrate. So that is pretty important stuff right there. Also, it is of note that Republican Representative Steve Toth's Bill 99, which would reduce the penalties for 2 ounces or less, also has made it out of committee. And yesterday, Republican Representative James White's bill, he joined us today, 3772, which would lower the penalties for both possession of flower and possession of concentrate. So that was a great hearing. It was quick because clearly they are thoughtful on this subject, and I hope that they will vote on it soon so that it can also start to make its way to calendars. Additionally, there was a medical hearing having to do with Chairwoman Click's bill. She authored 1535. Now, there are quite a few medical bills that have been authored, but this is the only bill that has been scheduled for a hearing so far. So it is very likely that this will be the vehicle. There are definitely some recommendations that we've offered to help improve the bill, but it does make some very important changes. So you guys make sure that you are reaching out to your legislators about all of these topics. I think that Stephen has been dropping our action links in the chat box, so click there. You can let your legislators know that you support these items, and it's especially important because calendars is the gateway to the House floor. So if these bills are all in calendars, we are hopeful that they will be having debate on the House floor soon. So that is very exciting. As you heard Representative Moody say, we could likely expect a hearing on full legalization of a regulated adult market within the next week or so. So very hopeful that that will move quickly. And you heard a little bit from Susan about what the hemp bill does. So I want to get to a couple questions real quick before I have an interview with Fox News. So I just want to be open and transparent that I will have a hard stop so that I can go do that. But let me go ahead and pull up these. Charles would like to know, how can someone get involved with Texas NORML? I live in a small town an hour south of San Antonio. So I would say one of the really important ways that you can support Texas NORML is becoming a member. You can join Texas NORML online at texasnorml.com/join, and those dues allow us to be able to do all of the work that it is that we have to do. So that's number one. Make sure that you're signed up to our newsletter so that you will get the action alert. San Antonio has some important legislators there, and making sure that you're actively engaged with them is one of the most important things that you can do. As we start having more in-person events, we do educational workshops across the state, so we might come to San Antonio, and hopefully you would join us for that. So hope that answered your question, Charles. Let's see. Stephen says, why are we allowed only 6 months to produce a crop? My plot permit expires 6 months from application. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that the license is for a calendar year, not from like January 2020 to January 2021. So maybe if you got it in June, that would be the reason why. If you want to email me at jax@texasnormal.org, I can try to connect you with someone who might be able to answer that for you. The hot crop penalty, I do agree. I see you note that if it's above the 0.3%, the farmers have to actually pay to destroy their crop because it's considered hot. And I think that there is some work in the legislation to help kind of clean up some of that issue, but some of it is also governed by the USDA at the federal level. So just make sure that you're getting involved with them as well, Stephen. So Brennan had a question for Morris. Do you think that THC cap is beneficial? Is TCAP really a medical program? So I can't say that I can speak for Morris as he is not currently still on with us, but I know that they are wanting to raise the cap because, as both Morris and Chase talked about, you have to have so much carrier oil that can have some digestive side effects. And so being able to have like the smallest amount that you can take, right? And I know that there's a lot of talk about, instead of doing percentage-based, doing a weight-based. You know, you get this many milligrams of THC and this many milligrams of CBD, and you can get your product accordingly. Is it really a medical program? So, I mean, technically, yes, physicians have to prescribe it, so it falls under the medical program. But I think that your point is that with the 0.5%, it's very similar to hemp products. And so the changing to the 5% will make a huge difference. But I think that it's really important because, you know, one of our recommendations is to either remove the cap or to move to a weight-based way of prescribing. And so hopefully that will be heard. So whenever you click on the action alert for the medical program, whenever you're talking to your legislator, just let them know that that's important to you, and share that with them so that whenever there is the conversation, the debate on the House floor, you know, there's opportunities for amendments and improvements, and perhaps your legislator would be interested in supporting that. So I hope that answered your question, even though I'm not Morris. So he also, Brennan asks, how does the Lieutenant Governor stand on allowing these bills to pass? So the Lieutenant Governor said publicly on the news that they are going to be improving the medical program. So I feel fairly strongly that Click's bill will pass and become law and help improve that program. I know chronic pain and PTSD would be included, and that's super important. Hopefully we're able to get a little bit more out of it. As far as decriminalization, he hasn't, you know, stood against it as he has in the past, and was recently, I think, at a Young Republicans event, and made a little bit of a joke about it. So I think that there is opportunity. I do think that there is the possibility that decrim makes it through, but that retail maybe will only have a hearing and move out of the committee in the House. So sorry, I just wanted to clarify on that. Darlene, how soon can I start getting South Dallas involved? So Darlene, there is actually a DFW NORML chapter up there. So you can look into getting involved with them. As I mentioned to a previous questioner, we go and we travel and we do things. So you are hopefully staying tuned with us to know when we're in your town. But, you know, a lot of this work right now during the pandemic is virtual. And so I think what's really important that I want to highlight is on the House side, in committee hearings, they are allowing people to submit electronic testimony up to 3,000 characters. They haven't allowed this before. It's extremely important. And it's also important that you know that it's part of the official record. So please participate in writing these comments and supporting these bills, but please also make sure that you are thoughtful because that will be around forever. All right, let me see. I think I may have covered all of the questions in the Q&A. There's a lot of chat going on, so I may have missed a little something in there. Sorry if I did. But what I want to do, last thing that I want to do is in the chat section, whoever answers this question first, and Stephen is helping me with this, he is going to be tracking in the chat section, and we'll make a note of who answers it properly first. Can you tell me the bill number for Representative Bucy's drug testing bill? He mentioned the number during his segment. So if you know what it is, drop it in the chat right now, and you will get a membership for Texas NORML for a whole year. And that is going to come with, boom, ba boom, boom, boom. This is a cooler tote. Oh, look. That's really matchy today, but this cooler tote, and we'll send you some stickers and some pins with that, and it'll be, excuse me, a membership for 1 year. So I'm going to check and see if I see anyone down here. So Debbie guessed 1535. Nope, Debbie. I'll give you guys a hint. If you can go to the Texas NORML website and click on the 87th Texas Ledge, you can find the bill number there. So who can get there first? I'll give you guys a second to go find that bill number. Mark, I see another question. Are Texas pain management doctors open to the teacup program versus prescribing pills? Thank you for that question, Mark. There was a pain management doctor actually at both the DCRIM and the medical hearing that gave some really thoughtful feedback and support of this. I know that he is already enrolled in the Texas Compassionate Use Program because a lot of pain patients also have muscle spasticity, and that is a qualifying condition. And so he is looking forward to making sure that that can move forward as well. So of that, let me just say that pain doctor does, and I think that there's quite a few others that do. A lot of people understand the safety profile as compared to opioids. So Sean Meredith, you are a winner. Okay, it took a hot minute. I picked a hard one. I wasn't going to make it easy, make you work for it. All right, Sean, I'm going to connect with you on mailing your membership stuff to you. Sean helped us break down our most recent educational exhibit at the Capitol. So really appreciate all of your help over the years. I think that Sean actually has been working on this since like the early aughts. So thank you, sir. And on that note, friends, I appreciate all of you guys joining us today. I am going to go change into a fancy shirt and go be on Fox News now. So I hope you guys have a lovely day. Take care, guys.